So this is a bit embarrassing because I needed to get to this months and months ago. I just couldn't fit it into the schedule, and I ended up never actually reviewing Scream. So I did see it, but I just never had a chance to really do a full-on review. So obviously now there are probably very, very few people who are not spoiled, but I will do only minor spoilers. I will try to keep most of the film a mystery for the very few people who have not seen it. And I'm sure the obvious question is it worth even looking at? I would say yes. Now, my record with Scream is a little mixed. I saw the first three. I loved them. I thought they were pretty good. I'm kind of unclear about the rankings because people are all over the place of which are the best Screams. I did not see Scream 4, so I need to catch up on that. So I liked the trilogy. I thought it was fine. I still prefer Nightmare on Elm Street. I prefer that as kind of Wes Craven's best horror. People under the stairs, things like that. I prefer sort of his work in horror elsewhere, but Scream is very respectable. But after the trilogy, I was kind of like, yeah, I've had my Scream. I don't need any more. Does this hold up in fulfilling the promise? I think so. I think if you are a hardcore Scream fan, you will be very pleased. If you're more like me, I'm kind of an intermediate fan. I did see the films. I remember a lot of the scenes, but I'm not obsessed with every detail. You'll kind of walk away like that was really good. That was very entertaining, but it felt a little contrived in places. So, what is going on? So, it's a little strange. Basically, we are following, of course, a new set of teenagers. We are working, I guess, technically in real time. So, yes, Scream 1 and those events did happen. They are canonical. So, it seems the first three films are definitely canonical. I can't speak on Scream 4. So, the events of the first three films happened. Time has moved on. We're getting a new set of victims. And of course, Ghostface comes back. And the obvious question is who is doing all the killings? Why are they doing the killings? And I do think, for the most part, the film does a lot of great misdirect because you will think that definitely Sam is a major suspect for a lot of the film. But of course, there's a lot of twists and turns. And I think, for the most part, they were done fairly effectively. But there were a few places where the plot contrivances were pretty insane. Some of them I had no problem with. Like, it's a really big trope of Scream that you see the first couple of victims and they definitely will be killed off. And they changed the formula. So the structure of Scream is different here. You still find a lot of the same old things. For instance, people talk and joke about horror movies. There's a lot of meta humor. I think that was pretty well done. There's some pretty good Rian Johnson jokes about The Last Jedi and Star Wars, about how the horror fandom becomes too obsessed with certain things. And I thought the first couple of minutes were really, really funny, where they just kept referencing all these horror films like The Babadook and what people think are better or worse horror films recently. That part of it, just these kids obsessed with horror films, I think that was fairly well done. That was pretty fun. It didn't feel on the nose or over the top. And then it starts, I think, to degenerate. Like the cameos with Sydney and some of the older characters, I think they were done pretty well. They come in at the right time. It's not overdone. And Dewey and Sydney, they feel like those old characters. They feel like they've grown up. That's fine. I had no issue there. But then when we start getting towards the end, it starts to get very, very silly. Like at a certain point, I thought Sydney is a very strong, athletic woman. She's faced the Ghostface threat a couple times. She felt a little too weak. You'd think she'd be a little faster, quicker, or stronger. And when she faces, granted, several opponents, you think, well, she's just being cautious. I don't know. I just felt like she could have been more active. So there's certain places where you're like, characters are acting a little too stupid. And when the adults do try to help, they're pretty much worthless. Because Ghostface, as always, is very invincible, very powerful. I will say this, though. The kills are brutal. There are some kills that they kind of stretch things out. They feel a little stupid and silly. But there are some kills that are very effective. They're very brutal, especially, I want to say, Jenny Ortega, because there are sequences where Ortega, she looks like she's in pain, and you feel it. Like she is in a lot of pain. So the threat level, the tension was very strong in a lot of scenes. But beyond the halfway point, it does start to degenerate. You kind of sense, what the murder mystery really is. You know who the killer really is. It's not really a big shock. And when they reveal it, it kind of felt a little lame. So I thought the ending was sort of silly. It's well shot. The cinematography is excellent. The performances were uniformly pretty good. And I think the new cast will, for the most part, endear you to what they're up to. However, I do think the ending was pretty silly. I mean, it's just very over the top, and I think it went a little bit too far. It's fun, but I thought it diminished a lot what they were doing in the film. It's a great film. I do recommend it. It's absolutely necessary if you're going to see Scream 6, because otherwise you'll be insanely confused. So it's a really good film. Was it the best film of 2022? No. Was it the best horror of 2022? No. Is it one of the best? Yes, I definitely can see why people put it on the top 10 list. But it being the absolute best, no, I think it was solid. It held up for the most part. I wasn't too scared, but again, at certain points, it was scary enough and funny enough in most places. But in a few places, it definitely felt really contrived and really weak. So overall, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I highly recommend Scream. You won't be disappointed, but at the same time, you might find yourself questioning certain scenes and certain acts and certain decisions by characters. It's not too bad, but you will have questions.